All right, here we are live. Happy Monday, everybody. Let me get you put up here. Get the setup going here. So, it's been a little while since I've put anything on here. Let's see, make some adjustments. Bear with me. All right. So, it's been a little while since I've put anything up on here. It's been super busy. This is probably like a terrible time to make a live stream, I guess, because, middle of the day on a Monday, most of you guys are probably working, not able to watch. But, I know a lot of people watch after it's already up, so just try it out, see how this all works out. So, bouncing through my driveway. So, yeah, just thought I'd get on here, talk to you guys about some things that have been going on in my world. So as some of you guys that follow me pretty closely might know, I was working with a dealership on the books because I'd like to get another place to live, and proving income is a little bit hairy when you're self-employed like I am. So I took a job kind of in my wheelhouse stuff to do. I was a technician for a dealership, and still trying to do my own thing when I wasn't working there, but that situation just wasn't working out for me. Essentially, the place that I was at was a RV dealership. Like, they sold motorhomes, Class A's, Class C's. They sold travel trailers, fifth wheels, all types of things, and I worked in their service department. It just wasn't shaking out, man. So an explanation of that, and if any of you guys are out there wanting to work at any dealership, whether it be an RV dealership or a car dealership or a truck dealership, the politics, the structure is very similar among all these. When you're talking about like a franchise dealer, like a new car dealer or new vehicle dealer, like where I was at. So essentially, what I did was a lot of, I guess I should go back and explain how this all works. So in the service department of any dealership that sells, especially new stuff, and even like used car places and stuff, big ones, big establishments, they're gonna have technicians that do different things. So about half the technicians or more at almost every place are gonna be prep or PDI, as they're called some places, pre-delivery inspection technicians. So what those guys do is they get paid to just look at the stuff that comes in and make sure it's ready to be sold. So for instance, in the example of a RV dealership, let's say you're looking at a motorhome, like a higher end motorhome, like a Tiffin motorhome, if you're familiar, and you're looking at one of those. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pull it into the shop, you're gonna open everything up and look through it and look for any defects. Most of these defects the manufacturer will pay for under warranty, but nobody owns it yet, so it's just, like it's just being paid for before somebody bought it and being fixed. And motorhomes and campers and all that kind of stuff are much worse in this regard than a car or a truck, because you gotta remember, these are basically houses that get dragged down the road all the time. So just in like the delivery aspect, like when they're rolling from the manufacturer to the dealership, there's gonna be stuff that settles in and really starts wearing in as that is going on, as that thing's going down the road. And of course, every single one that I ever have looked at, when it comes in, has something wrong with it. Sometimes major, sometimes minor, but there's always something wrong with it. But then, so there's guys that just go through it and just do that, and they do that at car dealerships too, but they usually don't find that much wrong with a car, in my experience, knowing other people that work at new car dealers and that kind of thing. It's not nearly as much wrong with a car when it comes in as like a camper, but then there's the service side, which is what I was doing. When somebody has bought something from the dealership, or even people that didn't buy from the dealership that just had something that needed to be fixed, when they come in, they make an appointment to get their stuff worked on. I was one of the technicians that dealt with that. So, you know, somebody could come in and say, you know, my brakes are squeaking, or anything is wrong. You know, anything under the sun that could be wrong with it, I worked on. And I leaned more towards the mechanical aspect, because I am not a carpenter. I'm not a handyman by any means. I can barely cut a board, you know what I mean? Like, if it's metal, it's good, I can work on it. But if we're talking about like stuff like doing trim work or changing plumbing around, all that, I can't really do that. It's not in my list of skills. So I did a lot of the mechanical repairs and stuff there, and that was great. You know, that's what I'm used to doing. That's what I like doing, and that was all working out all fine and good. But there were just aspects to the company that weren't jiving with me. It all started like about a couple days after I started working there. They announced a new policy where they would make you buy shoes that met like certain safety requirements, which is common among all shops. I don't care where you're at. Most shops are going to at least prefer, if not demand, that you have steel toe boots, for instance, and sometimes non-slip, oil resistant, depending from shop to shop. And every shop I've ever worked at has been like this. And you know, not a problem for me. I own plenty of pairs of boots that meet those requirements. But this place wanted us to buy the shoes from a specific retailer through their web portal. And that was a problem for me, because number one, I mean, it's hard to see on video. I'm like almost 6'3", which is whatever, but I wear a size 14 shoe. And when you start getting into these odd sizes, two pairs of shoes are not going to fit the same once you start getting into these crazy sizes. This is my experience. I could go and look at a pair of 14s in one brand, and they won't fit at all. They will be super uncomfortable. I go look at another brand, it'll be perfect. And then sometimes even like from the same brand, I've experienced in my personal experience that I can go into a store, find two pairs of the same size, and they're the same shoe, and put on one pair, it doesn't feel good, and I put on another pair and it feels fine. Now, I don't understand why it's like that. I don't think other people have that problem that have like, you know, size 10s and stuff, because they're just so common. And I wonder if like whatever tooling is at a shoe factory or whatever. I mean, I don't know, like why these bigger oddball sizes aren't as consistent, but they're not. That's just the way it is, and I know that from experience. And so what I do is when I go buy shoes, I make sure they fit good, and I make sure that they're good. There's not anything up with them, and I buy them. And I don't mind that, you know. And so they wanted us to go and buy the shoes from this web portal so that they could prove that we bought the shoes from them. You know, from the it was from the uniform company, Cintas. If you work at a place that has uniforms and, you know, like washes the uniforms for you and all that, Cintas is like one of the most common ones. I think there's also UniFirst is pretty common, but our company was Cintas. So they wanted us to go to Cintas website, buy the shoes from Cintas, and they said, oh well, we're crediting $50 to each pair directly from the company and this and that, so you know it's a good deal for you guys. Well, no, it's not, because even when you added it all up with the $50 credit from the company, the same shoes, because they weren't like Cintas brand shoes, they were like Like I think they had a pair of Reeboks in there. I think they had Timberlands. They had a couple of different brands. They were not Cintas branded stuff. So when you took and like search for that model of shoe in your size on like Amazon or like anywhere else that would carry it, that you know, everywhere else was like the same price or less. And that was after the $50 credit. So, you know, in reality, you could probably buy most of those shoes cheaper if you just looked around than what you'll get them for with the credit. On top of that, you know, there was a limited selection of brands, which, you know, was whatever, but it was just like that demand that they wanted me to go out and buy new shoes from a specific place that were a specific brand, because there was only like certain brands you could choose from. Didn't like that. That's like a level of micromanaging that I'm just not into at all. So that was like one nail in the coffin. And like from the moment that they said that, like, you know, we're talking about, I was like 2 days in at this point when they announced this to everybody. I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I'm just never gonna buy those and see what happens. And I was pretty much fine. If they wanted to fire me over not buying shoes that they wanted me to buy, then they can. But you know, they never got to that point. They did mention it a couple times to everybody, because a lot of other people didn't buy them, even though they were demanded to. So yeah, that was one thing. And then so the way that it worked is it's a flat rate shop. Like most shops are like a flat rate. So what they do is like every job you work on, there's a book somewhere, or not a book now. Back in the day, it used to be a book, but now it's like on a computer. There's like a database of every job and how long they are worth. You know, how long you have to work on them, how much they'll pay for the job, essentially. So when you're working on something, they'll say, for instance, like mounting a tire might book for like a half hour, mount and balance a tire for an RV, for instance. And if you can do it faster than a half hour, great, you're getting paid a half hour. For someone only took like whatever, 20 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. And if you can consistently beat the time, then you know you'll end up with an awesome check, you know, because you could potentially book as many hours as, you know, you can bust out. If you are hustling and you're good and you're quick, and you're beating those times, you can end up with a sweet check. On the flip side, you could also end up getting like a 10-hour check. Like if you get stuck on a job and a bunch of crap goes down and, you know, it doesn't go good, you might find that your check is pretty slim, pretty light. So, you know, but that's the way it goes. You win some, you lose some. Most guys that have been doing it for a while never come out on the losing end. A slow week is like a week where they book exactly the amount of hours they were there. And like a good week is like, at like a lot of places, is like doubling your hours. That's all well fine and good. And the way other shops I've worked at that did this flat rate system did this was, if you were there more than 40 hours, what they would do, like for instance, if you were there, if you had like 10 hours of overtime, because overtime is usually time and a half, what they'll do is they'll just pay you an extra 5 hours, because that would be your extra half on 10 hours. So essentially, like if you got paid, you know, just for ease of thinking about it, let's say you get paid $20 an hour. You have your flat rate, but you're paid flat rate. If you're there 50 hours, you're gonna get an extra $5 for every 10 hour for every hour in that 10 hours. So you get an extra $50 in your check because you were there for 10 hours overtime. And that's how they negotiated that. Because obviously, if they had to pay you overtime for every hour that you booked over 40 hours, that wouldn't be very fair. There's like guys that will like book like 100 hours on a 50-hour week, and that wouldn't work. So that's how they do that at a lot of places. But this place just said, yeah, we just don't pay overtime at all. Like I guess it was too complex for them. Whatever. They didn't pay overtime. Well, okay. That's fine. But then they also demanded that you work 5 hours overtime every week. Well, okay, I don't know if what the legality is offhand for a flat rate shop to pay overtime. I know for regular hourly people, like if you are just like getting paid whatever, 20 bucks an hour from the time you show up to the time you leave, and that's it, you definitely legally have to be paid overtime. That's the law. But once you start getting into this weird flat rate thing, that gets a little wishy-washy whether or not they can legally do it. But it's still unethical. Whether or not it's legal, I don't know. But it's definitely unethical because you're telling people that they have to be there 45 hours. You're telling people that they have to come in every other Saturday instead of spending that time with their family when their kids are out of school or whatever. So, you know, when you're telling people this kind of thing, telling them they have to come in 45 hours, then you damn well better be paying them overtime. You're demanding that they're there. Now, if it were optional, it wouldn't be unethical, right? Because if it were just like an option, like, you know, hey, you know, you can stay around, we just don't pay overtime. The person knows they're not getting paid overtime for being there that long. It's fine. But, you know, this, I didn't like that. That says a lot about a company that they would do that to their employees. That is just a shitty thing for a company to do to their employees, and I don't like it. Just me, like, I don't have any employees. I'm a sole proprietor. I'm the only guy. But, of course, hiring people is definitely going to be in my future if I expand like I want to. I mean, I'll have to hire people. And when I hire people, if I don't want to pay them overtime, I won't let them work overtime. I won't tell them, yeah, well, you know, I don't pay overtime, but, you know, can you come in for an extra 5-10 hours? No, that won't happen. If I don't want to pay it, I'm not going to make them do it. Now, if they decide that they want to do it, but they don't mind not getting paid that extra for the overtime, it's totally voluntary, then fine. You know what I mean? I'm not going to keep them from doing it. I'm just going to let them know ahead of time, like, hey, I can't do this. You know what I mean? I can't pay you overtime. So if you want to go home now, go ahead. If you want to stick around and try and just work more hours, you can also do that. That's totally up to you. So, but yeah, so that's like the second strike. And then the very last strike with this company, and I mean, I don't want to bore you with like the super minute details on it, but probably the biggest strike with these guys was poor management. And you know what? I think that this poor management thing is widespread, because the more I talk to people, the more I look online and like see people complaining about poor management, all the memes that you see on Facebook and everything about bad managers and all that. It seems like this is an epidemic across the country of bad managers in every field. But these guys, man, I mean, this was like to like the nth degree of bad management here. Oh, it's a nice looking S2000 with like a fastback looking top. Huh. Don't see that too often. Wish I could have caught that on the video for you guys. There was a S2000 that went by and it had like a hard top that was like a fastback looking thing, like almost like a hatch. It looked really good. I mean, I'm not like crazy about S2000s. I don't hate them. I don't think I would go out and buy one for the money that they cost. So yeah, but getting back to the bad management thing, that was like the real straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, I don't want to like get too crazy about it, but I had a manager that was a shop foreman there that was just totally unprofessional, for one thing. For another thing, he was asking me to do stuff that, you know, was unsafe. He didn't know how to do my job, you know, which to me, okay, like if you're a foreman, like the word foreman to me means somebody that worked in your position and moved their way up. They're like the next level over your position. That's the way it is on construction sites for sure. And you would think that should be the way it is in a shop. And I think that is the way it is at most shops. You know, they're guys that know how to do the job. but they're older, they've been in it for a long time. This is like the logical progression for foreman. So, but this wasn't the case for this guy. This guy didn't have a mechanical background like that. He was self-admitted to not having a mechanical background, which, you know, I respect that. You know, I respect that you can admit what you can do and what you can't do. But at the same time, if you're going to admit that and you're going to own that, then own it fully. Don't, this guy would like tell you like he didn't know how to do it, but then try to tell you how to do it. Try and micromanage how you did it, and criticize people. And, you know, he didn't do much criticism of me because I mean, if you've got a real criticism of me and it's really founded, then I'll take it. But when you come up to me, and this guy would like come up to me and like I'd be using a air chisel, which is loud. I mean, that's just the way they are. But they're a tool that you use in a shop. I mean, this is what you expect in a, you know, any type of shop like that, is to hear loud noises. And he would complain about the amount of noise I was making. Tell me I'm making too much noise. Like legitimately like criticize me for making too much noise. That was the kind of guy he was. He cared. I mean, the whole company, the whole mentality of this company was more about appearance than anything. They wanted things to appear that they were on the up and up. They wanted to appear that they were super professionals and you know, clean cut, all this and that. They cared more about appearances than they cared about work. One thing I do not like that in a company. If I work with somebody and I see they're like that, then in general I do not continue working with that person. That's just the way I am. Nothing against it. I understand that people that like that. There's some people that really like having that clean cut appearance, want their place to have that clean cut appearance. But when you go to the degree of trying to do that to where it absorbs the ability for the place to function, like for instance telling your technicians not to use air chisels so they can get their job done, then I've got a problem with that. You know, at this point, you're trying to sell a lie, is really essentially what it is. You're trying to make it appear that you've got something you don't. So, didn't like that very much. And then somehow, somewhere along the line, somebody at the corporate level decided that we weren't allowed to have grinders in the shop, like angle grinders in the shop. No bench grinder, no angle grinder. The only thing close to a grinder that we had was a chop saw for cutting pieces of metal. And so they took the shop grinder out. I don't know what they did with it. It was gone. And that's a problem because I did a lot of welding and fabrication there. Not like a lot, but a good amount. Enough to need a grinder, for sure. And so I was trying to work on something in the day that they took that the shop angle grinder out. I said, hey, I need to grind this. Like, where is that grinder? Is it still around here somewhere, or what happened with it? And he goes, oh, we're not allowed to have grinders in the shop anymore. We're like, well, I can't do this job without a grinder. I mean, I need a grinder, okay? And they said, it was like a small piece. Like, it wasn't like it was probably a piece about whatever, like 6-7 inches long. I need to grind the end of it. And they said, the guy told me, well, just go over to the chop saw and just grind it on the side of the chop saw blade. And I looked at him like, are you joking, dude? Like, that is so just stupid. For one thing, grinders in general are dangerous tools. That's just the nature of it. And, you know, accidents can happen. A chop saw is not a grinder. You cannot use a chop saw like a grinder. And if you do, then you're putting yourself at risk. Now, if I had been doing that with that chop saw and it threw that piece across the shop and hit somebody and hurt them, I would have been seen as being the one that was negligent. That would have been on me, because I should know better than to do something like that. But that's what he wanted me to do. And it's just stupidity. just outright stupidity. It's not like extraordinarily dangerous to grind something that way, but it's just stupid. It's not effective. It's not efficient, and you're just exposing yourself to more danger than if you just used a grinder in the first place. Stupid. And finally, this whole thing culminated, and I finally just was fed up when they were trying to make me do the foreman's job and my own job at the same time. They were trying to get some recalls done on some units, and there was quite a few that had to be done, and they were all over the lot. We had 3 different lots where we held these campers, and so our one main lot was probably, if I had to guess, it was probably like a good 15-acre lot of just RVs, and then there were 2 other large lots about I'd say like a quarter mile down the road, so it was a distance away. And they wanted me to go and figure out where they were, coordinate getting them in the shop, put the parts on, do the paperwork, everything. So essentially, like, as a technician, your job is just like, when it comes to the shop, you work on it. They want me to do their job and my job. Mind you, I'm being judged on the amount of time that I bill. So I can't bill time looking for the thing I'm gonna work on. It's just, you can't. So, you know, it's like, it was getting ridiculous. And they had that, and then they also doing the same thing with stuff that came in that had problems that they forgot about. So they would get somebody to prep something, it would have a problem, they'd order the part, leave it sitting on the shelf, and then forget about it, and then they didn't do anything about it until they got a nasty email from the corporate level, and they tried the same thing with that. I was, being told I had to go out and look for every individual one and figure out where the part is and all this, and that's a foreman's job. He needs to coordinate getting that work to me. That is not my job to do that part of it. Everybody has a job. You're supposed to be a team, and they were just trying to put everything off on me. Meanwhile, you got 2 foremen that are sitting behind a desk, behind a computer, on their friggin' ass, dude. Can't even ask, like, there's guys that go out to those lots back and forth all day long. They could write down a list like, okay, I want this, this, and this. Tell me where these are, and if they're on the other lot, bring them to this lot. But they didn't do that. They put that on me, and I don't have access to the computer system that they do, where they can look at what the inventory is, all that. It would be way more efficient for them to do it, but they wanted me to do it because they were too lazy. Pure laziness. So, I mean, I didn't mean to make this into a rant, but this is just a bad company to work for. Maybe not a bad company to do business with and to buy something from. They're probably great. They're probably, as good as any other dealership to buy from. But to work for, to do service work for, I'm totally displeased with it. It was big regret. I lost a lot of money working for them because I could have been working for myself, doing my own thing, making way more money. Lost a lot of money doing it, trying to accomplish a goal. It was like I was cutting off my nose to spite my face, because not only was I losing money, but it was actually making it harder for me to get a new place, because I was doing it to prove income, but then I'm not getting paid enough to actually do what I want to do. So just, yeah. So, this is a narrow thing, you know what I mean? Like, I bet if you went to the same company, because they're a nationwide dealership, if you went to that dealership, one of their other locations in another state, and did the same job as me, you might have a great experience. But the location I was at, the people I was working with, the management specifically, the other technicians were great. Met some really cool people there, but the management there, totally trash, man. The corporate side of it, and this is where I say, I don't know if you could go to another state and be any better off, because the corporate side of it is just a bunch of garbage people. Honestly, I mean, they made us sit through like a online presentation from the guy that's like the CEO of the company, where the guy sat there and told us all about his path to becoming CEO, where, you know, he said he was a salesman for a year and then became a sales manager and then did this and then did that, all this other bullshit. But in reality, the fact of the matter is his grandfather started the company and it got handed down. Why he felt the need to tell us all this bullshit about how he climbed a ladder when he didn't? Like, it's just this weird mentality. Like, he's trying to come at you like, oh, you could really go places with this company. Just sit here and bend over for, you know, the rest of your life and hope that we give you good promotions. You know, like, get real, man. Like, you know, we all know that you're the grandson of the guy that founded the company. You ain't gotta sit there and dick us around. Part of our orientation when we first started told us all about how your grandfather started the company and handed it down to you. And now you want to come out with this presentation and tell us the opposite, like you came in off the street and now you run the company. It didn't happen that way. It was weird, man. It was really weird how they did things there. And then, like, you know, the company is based in Michigan, and, you know, I'm down in Virginia, so the climate between Michigan and Virginia is a lot different. And, you know, it was getting, like, really hot here for, like, a little while, like to the point where, like, kind of heat where you get injured when you're working in it. And, you know, so they're, like, trying to, like, preach heat safety, make sure you drink plenty of water. They're going out and buying bags of ice, putting a cooler with Gatorade bought from the company, which is great. Happy that they did that. But then some schmuck up in Michigan goes and sends an email saying that they want everybody to have their shirt tucked in the shop. Well, so you're gonna tell me that you're worried about my safety in the heat, and then turn around and say, but you gotta tuck your shirt in. Well, the best way to mitigate the amount of heat that you're retaining is to dress down, to untuck your shirt, to take off your overshirt. Those are the things that you should be doing first. You know, let's not trap the heat in and make it worse. And like I said, they're more worried about appearances and your safety than their productivity, than anything. They want to make a good appearance. Guess what? If somebody's going to come in and spend $100,000 on an RV, whether or not your guys have their shirts tucked in isn't going to make that difference to them. They're going to buy it or they're not. Mind you, yeah, you know, you don't want a trashy place, but that's just ridiculous. That's micromanagement. You got some guy in Michigan who works in an office, drives to work at 6 o'clock in the morning when it's probably 40 degrees in Michigan, and then gets out of his car, goes into a climate-controlled office, sits in that office all day writing emails about how people should be dressed, and then leaves for the day, is outside briefly just to walk to his car, and is in his air-conditioned car the rest of the day. He has no idea. He's not in anywhere near the same heat that we're in ever. And then on top of that, he doesn't sweat a drop all day long. He's sitting behind a desk. But you're gonna let that guy tell your employees how to dress that are thousands of miles away in a totally different climate. I mean, it's stupid. Like, that's just stupid. Like, why would you let him do that? If I was the guy running that got that email from him, I would have replied back like, listen, I mean, the day that they told us this, it was like, I think it was like 96 degrees where we were, and it was 63 degrees in Michigan where they were sending it from. I looked it up on my phone. So at the same time, it was 96 here, 63 there. You can't compare those climates. You can't compare those situations. But they don't think about that. And they got another spot down in Florida, so it's probably even worse than Florida. I don't know. Some people say that Virginia is hotter than Florida. I don't know if that's true or not. It's really humid here. But, you know, so, you know, why operate this way? It's totally ineffective. I'm just not willing to work for a company like that. I'm not willing to do that to myself. So that's pretty much what happened there. So I'm back to full-time working for myself, just like I like being anyway. you know, I've got my shop now, so that's really good. I'm really happy to have that. I'm gonna devote all my energy to really taking off of my shop. My lease is a year long. My goal is to, by the end of the year lease, so this time next year, you know, I'm a month into my lease right now. I've had the shop a month. So in 11 months, I want to be where I get into an even bigger shop. So I need to get work flowing in. I need to have work flowing out, money flowing in and out. And I want to get into a bigger shop. So basically a place about double the size I'm in right now, 11 months from now. And then after I'm in there, I want to hire 2 people. I want to hire somebody to do the same thing as me. So essentially the same, like the work side, you know, like be a technician, somebody that does the actual work to the vehicles. And I want to hire somebody to be a service writer. So I want to move away from doing like work for car dealers. I want to move away from doing that kind of thing, because there's not as much money in it as working for people off the street, because you're giving these dealers a good price on the hours, right? So the dealers I am working for, I want them to start sending their stuff to me rather than having send me to them. That's one of my first goals. That'll save me a lot of traveling around, a lot of fuel. So that'll be an increase in pay just from that. And then I also want to start, I don't want to advertise a ton, because one, it's a lot of money, and two, it could possibly be too effective. Like, I'm only one guy, I'm in a small shop. I can't bring in more work than I can complete, because it won't look good. But I will start advertising a little, just doing small stuff. So if anybody sees this, you know, I know sometimes people come across my stuff and watch it. If you watch this far and you do any type of advertising work, like I'm talking business cards, you know, search engine optimization, you know, website building, any of that kind of thing. Mind you, I can do a lot of this stuff myself. So if you can do it, I want you to be a lot better than me, especially the search engine optimization stuff. Like, you know, feel free to you know, drop a comment or something, and I'll reach out to you to see if we can hammer out something together. Business cards are probably going to be the first thing. I do not want to buy from a big company. I want to buy from some guy just like me. I want to support small business. Vistaprint, you know, is like my last option. I don't want to buy from Vistaprint if I don't have to. I want somebody that can put out quality work, give me a quality product. So if you can do that and do it at a competitive price, let me know in the comments. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one off. We're at about 40 minutes almost. So if you guys watched this far, I want to thank you very much. And if you watched this far, please consider subscribing, and I will catch you all in the next one.